before the first law was written, before man learned to speak of good and evil, there was harmony. All creation breathed in rhythm with its maker. Every vibration, every atom moved in agreement with an invisible frequency, a language older than words, alignment. To exist was to agree with God. To live was to flow with Him. And then something shifted, a subtle fracture in the unseen. Sin was not born in the moment man ate from a tree. It was conceived when the created began to imagine existence apart from the Creator. When the mirror stopped reflecting light and started gazing at itself, wondering, "Can I shine on my own?" Sin is not first an act, it is a question. It is the thought that life could continue without the source. It is the silent rebellion of independence dressed as freedom. It is the distortion of divine resonance when a note in God's eternal song plays off key and refuses to return to tune. That is why sin is more than behavior. It is a condition. It is the disease of disconnection, a separation that began not with hands, but with the heart. Every lie, every pride, every act of violence, these are just echoes of that first fracture. The human story is not the tale of bad people trying to be good. It is the drama of broken instruments searching to find their original sound again. Sin hides itself in sophistication. It is not always the obvious evil. Sometimes it is the subtle thought, "I am enough without Him." Sometimes it speaks the language of logic, culture, and progress, whispering that truth is relative, that light is what we say it is. But truth is not an idea. Truth is a person. And sin is what happens when we disconnect from that person. If God is the frequency of being, then sin is static. It interrupts the signal. It scrambles the language between heaven and the soul. That is why a man can achieve everything and still feel empty, because his success is a monument built in a foreign kingdom. He has built outside alignment. He has constructed his life in exile. Sin does not always look like rebellion. Sometimes it looks like success without submission. It is not always darkness. Sometimes it is light that refuses to bow to the sun. And that is the most dangerous kind of sin, the one that wears the costume of righteousness but beats with the heart of pride. When man fell, it wasn't just the garden that was lost, it was language. We forgot how to speak the dialect of oneness. Our words became divided, truth versus lie, sacred versus secular, heaven versus earth. Sin split reality in two. We began to live as fragments. Our souls became exiles in our own bodies. That is why redemption was not about changing behavior. It was about restoring harmony. The cross was God's way of retuning the universe. The sound of grace pierced through the static, realigning creation back to its original note. To understand sin is to see how far we drifted from the sound of love. It is to realize that sin is not just what we do wrong, it's the distance we create from what is right. It's the shadow cast when we turn our backs to the light. But the light does not withdraw, it simply waits for the shadow to remember the sun. Every time we lie, hate, or manipulate, we participate in the ancient fracture. Every time we forgive, love, and yield, we participate in the repair. Sin breaks, grace rebuilds. Sin isolates, love reconnects. Sin says, "I will rise." Love says, "I will descend." And in that descent, in that humility, the world finds healing. You cannot escape sin by denying it, and you cannot overcome it by effort. You must return to alignment. Sin is a broken rhythm, and Christ is the tuning fork of the universe. When His life enters yours, the frequency of heaven begins to vibrate again within your being. You start to remember what it feels like to be whole. You begin to see the world not through guilt, but through glory, not as a battlefield, but as a temple waiting to be cleansed. What is sin? It is forgetting who you are when you are not in Him. It is man trying to live apart from the breath that sustains him. It is not the serpent's bite, it is the slow poison of separation. And only one antidote exists: reunion. The mystery of salvation is not that God punishes sin, it is that He heals disconnection. Every drop of blood on the cross was a note, a sound wave calling creation back to its source. Every heartbeat of Christ was the echo of an ancient invitation: return to me and live. Because sin is not merely the wrong we do, it is the distance between what we were made to be and what we have settled for. And when you finally see that, you stop trying to fix yourself, and you start allowing the light to tune you again. That is where transformation begins, not in striving, but in surrender, not in guilt, but in grace, not in fear, but in resonance with love. So if you ask, what is sin? The answer is not in theology, but in sound. It is disharmony. It is when the created ceases to vibrate with the Creator. And the good news, the gospel, is that the conductor has never stopped the music. He still plays, he still calls, he still waits for the note that is you to return into tune.